Hello, hello. How is everyone tonight? We're going to get rolling here in just one momento. Thanks for being here. And how is everyone? I hope you are all doing amazing tonight. So I am Amanda Testa, for those of you who may not know me, and we're going to get right started and rolling, and we're going to be talking about tonight 5 steps to reignite connection in your relationship. So welcome. Thank you for being here. So let me start with this question for you all. How many of you would like to have more connection in your relationship right now? And how would you like to have more fun and more flow in general in your relationship? I know I do. I love when we're flowing. So tonight we're really going to dive in, and you're going to discover how to reignite this connection and how to have fun with it without spending hours in the therapist's office. There are, a lot of benefits to that, but not tonight, right? And relationships, they just have they have all this potential, right? They can be a great container for growth and for learning so much about ourselves and for healing if we allow it. So we just, honestly, most of us have not been taught anything about that or really have an understanding of what that could look like or what that could be. So we're just going to kind of dive on in. And if you have any questions along the way, I'll just really quick share Zoom with you. You can pop them in the chat and I will try to get those answered for you. And yay, I'm just excited to see everyone tonight. Let me just adjust something here. Here we go. That's better. Now I can see you. So first of all, I just want to thank you all for being here. I know you have busy schedules and busy lives, and it's a big deal to take time out of your schedule to be here. So thank you. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make it worth your time and energy and effort. So if you have a bunch of tabs open, I'll invite you to close those and put your phone on silent and really just take this time for yourself. I know we often feel like we've got to multitask, but really, we're not great at it, let's be honest. And so let's just focus on one thing and just allow yourself to receive what you're meant to receive from our time together today. So if you want to take some notes, I'll, grab a pen and paper or a journal. You'll have an opportunity to do some note taking, and I'm going to invite you to, because I want this to be an interactive. I want you to really get some value here. And we're going to get rocking and rolling. Really just gift yourself this time. So why is this important, you may ask? Well, what I'm going to share with you tonight is really 5 keys and steps that I have seen that are really key to creating more connection in your relationship. It's different than things you might have seen out there. And I know there's a lot of techniques and a lot of theory out there. And honestly, there is so much more to it than that. And what I believe and what I know is that teaching on theory is not enough. You have to have really spent time and hours perfecting the process. And let me tell you, I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours on understanding how to work with couples and really understanding how to help people heal their relationships. So, I'm certified and I'm an embodied, living, breathing proof that this works. So know that you're in good hands here. And again, during our time together tonight, I'm just going to teach you a few quick things. Like really by the end of this, you're going to discover, number 1, how to feel more connected with your partner, which we all want, how to feel safe and seen and heard, which is another big key, and really how to enjoy more intimacy and better connection. And, is this for you? Well, let me ask you, there's so many different reasons people seek support around their relationships or just want to learn more. So maybe you're just really tired of going through the motions. Maybe you're stuck in a routine and you don't even know if there's a way out. Maybe you're just not feeling connected at all with the person sleeping next to you at night. Maybe you're just super busy and you're always on the move. You're always up here. You're managing a million things. You've got, a family, you've got kids, you've got work, you've got all these things, and just trying to find time for your relationship as you manage everything just feels really difficult. You know, the to-do list can be never ending. I get that. You know, and maybe you really are you're missing intimacy. Maybe it's been so long that you pretend to be asleep when your partner comes to bed, and you don't even want to get in an argument about why you're not having sex. So you've just kind of become roommates, and you want that to shift because you know there's love there and you want to rekindle that. Or maybe you just, you know, things are pretty good and you're just curious how you can find more soul connection with your partner. Or, you know, maybe you just want to take things to the next level. And I send you kudos no matter where you are in the relationship, and just thank you for being here. We all can enjoy more soulful connection. It's doable. And if you stay until the end, I'm going to share with you 2 of my favorite practices that really help to improve this connection and bring back that spark. And if you implement all I'm teaching tonight, you're going to get real clear on where you are in your relationship and where you want to be. You're going to have increased ability and belief in how to connect, and believe you can do it. And, you know, and how to go about feeling that spark again, right? So I can really relate to where you are. I know in my own relationship, you know, gratefully, I am so thankful that I'm married to my husband and we have a really good thing going. But, you know, when my daughter was around 18 months old, we kind of found ourselves in a funk, and I was in a huge funk. And really, it had a lot to do with me and feeling just so disconnected from who I was as a woman. I was doing all the things I thought were right for myself. You know, I was working out, I was involved in my community, I was eating well, I was doing all these things, but still just something was really missing. Something deep was missing inside. And I just remember one morning kind of stumbling to the bathroom and just looking at myself in the mirror and saying, who are you? And I just made a commitment to myself in that moment that I would do whatever it took to find her again. And one of those things that I did was starting to work with my sexuality and learning more about how to have good relationships. And so one of the breadcrumbs that came across my path was the Tantric Institute of Integrated Sexuality, where I've been studying for over 4 years. I have over 800 hours of certifications, and really all around learning how to tap into your, you know, a real deep sense of love and safety for yourself, for, you know, feeling worthy of having what you want, learning how to communicate, learning how to ask for what you want in your relationship, learning how to set boundaries, learning how to bring in the body and let your body know that your partner is an ally. So, you know, we're just not taught these things. We are not taught how to communicate in relationships. It would be awesome if we were, right? That should be a required course. And they really, I honestly think before you get a marriage license, you should take some of these classes, you know, because we don't know. We don't know what we don't know, right? But the good news is these are all learned skills. These are all learned skills. We can learn how to communicate. We can learn how to connect. We can learn how to have better intimacy. We can learn these things. So that's the good news, is that where you are now does not equal where you're going to be if you choose to do something about it. And there's a lot going on in relationships, right? I love how my teacher says, you know, it's not just 2 people coming together in a relationship. There are 2 inner children, 2 inner biologies, 4 ancestral lineages, right? 2 hearts, 2 genitals, 2 inner judges and critics, 2 primal brains, all kinds of stories, 2 different karmas, 2 spiritual paths, and often a lot of emotional baggage. So it's absolutely no wonder that we struggle in relationship and that it's so complex and it can be very confusing to navigate. So just knowing and understanding that wherever you are in your relationship, it's not a failure. You know, this is just great information. You have this opportunity for deeper healing and integration if you choose to look at it that way. And so there's never a failure in relationship. And I also like to share that, you know, not every relationship is going to be forever, right? And there's always beauty and such purpose and meaning, no matter how long your relationship lasts. And so I just commend you again for being here. And I know we have limited time. It's hard to pack 10 years of learning into 60 minutes, but this is a challenge. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm going to do my best. And I really just want to share 5 keys in this system so you can implement them right away and get some immediate results. That's what I can do. But, you know, let me ask you this. How many times have you tuned into a webinar or like tuned into a book and really said, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. Totally going to do that. Then you actually didn't implement anything. So I just would love it if you would make a little commitment to yourself And you can even promise me if that feels good, but just make a commitment to yourself that you will implement what you learn here tonight, what you discover, and take massive action. Cool? Can I get some yeses? All right, so let's get rolling. And number one, I'm going to share with you the number one step around this is you got to have clarity and you got to have a vision for what you want your relationship to look like, right? So what is your intention for wanting this deeper connection, right? Maybe even grab your notebook now and take a couple notes here. I'd love for you to just really tap into that. Maybe you want more harmony in the home. Maybe you want more ease and flow. Maybe you want more twitterpation and feeling that fun and romance again, right? Maybe you want hot, yummy sex. You know, when you connect deeply with your why, it makes it easier to move forward with the action steps. You know, why is your relationship important to you? And really kind of understanding what is going on in your current situation, right? What are the challenges you're currently facing now? And if you could, you know, say abracadabra, ta-da, and wave a magic wand and have that resolved, what would your life look like? Just like let your imagination play. No judgment. Just let your imagination play. I'm checking a few different screens here for comments. So if you're wondering what I'm up to over here. As you think about this, you know, I want you to just really put your mind in this just place of pure potential. Anything is possible, right? Which sometimes can be challenging, I know, but just to let your imagination play. And just think, what is your ideal vision for your relationship? How do you want to feel, right? And what would it mean to you if you were able to achieve this as a couple? And if you are able to have this, just look around you and what do you see as a result of this? Where are you? Who's around you? You know, what do you hear? What do you smell? What do you taste? What do you touch? Right? The more you can let this imagination play, the more you bring different parts of your brain in. So just have fun and don't censor yourself. And so I'll invite you to, you know, continue with this as you have time later. You know, really, what do you want out of your relationship and why is that important to you? So that will be your guiding light, right? So that's very important. And now we're going to move on to step number 2. And this is really key. And often we've not been taught this. And it's really creating a sense of safety in your relationship. That might sound crazy, right? Well, of course I'm safe with my partner. But you know what? We don't always realize it, but subconsciously we might not feel safe with our partners, right? When we are constantly bickering or constantly in these states of argument or stress, then we can trigger these stress cycles in one another. So what that means is you have, you know, your primal brain, your amygdala is going to keep you protected, right? So you're like an animal, and if something triggers you, you lash out, and you're definitely not open. You're definitely not open to connect. You're protective of yourself, right? And we might not even realize this on a conscious level, but if you are constantly in those states and you're triggering that with your partner, there's no wonder there's no connection. You're protecting yourself. You are in a reactive state. You're not responding well to things. Maybe there's just not very much harmony at all in the home, right? Maybe you just avoid each other, or you intentionally go your separate ways while you cohabitate. But, you know, as humans, we all want safety, love, and belonging. I mean, that's like the base level of what we all want. And we can really learn to communicate well and let our partner realize that we're on the same page, right? And that we're safe. There's ways you can do this. And it's no wonder, you know, our brains are protecting us, right? everything, it may not seem to be serving us, and maybe it's not anymore, but at one point, these patterns were put in place so that we can protect ourselves. Because if something's painful or you're not enjoying it, of course you're going to want to avoid that. You know, if you're not connecting with your partner and you don't want to have sex, but you say yes anyway, and then you don't enjoy it, then of course you're not going to want to, right? Your body, or if you're having pain, then of course you're not going to want to. Like, our body is protecting us. It wants to avoid pain. So it's normal that those cycles can happen. And two, you know, relationships go through cycles. We have our winters, our springs, our summers and falls. So that is just part of it. So when it comes to creating safety in your relationship, how do you do this? So first of all, one of the things I love to help couples do is to create a space in your home where you can come together, and you know that when you're in this little space, and try it to be a neutral area, maybe a neutral space, so that you can both go there and know that there's going to be no drama in this space, right? It takes both people to be involved here sometimes, but, you know, just understanding that, like, when we come together here, we're not going to attack each other. And, you know, secondly, you got to take responsibility for your own reactions. And taking responsibility of how you speak when you're in this safe space, and how that can look. And I mean, this is simple things, is using I statements, right? Instead of saying, oh, you're so mean, you could say, I really feel terrible when you talk to me that way. When you start to raise your voice, and I feel really scared inside, and I don't like how that makes me feel, because you can't argue with how someone's feeling, right? It also allows you to take responsibility versus like placing blame on someone else, like, oh, you're this and you're that. You're like, I feel this way, when, you know, you can just explain how you're feeling about it. And the other thing too is understanding, if you're coming together to really try to make things better, is trying to tap into the bigger version of you. And this is something I try to teach my clients, and what we work with is like really understanding when you can tap into this place inside of you that can hold anything. We all have this connection to this empowered version of ourselves. And when we can tap into that, we can hold so much more. And from that place, you can just kind of really support your partner more, right? So if you notice that they always get triggered around a certain thing, then instead of, you know, reacting back, maybe you could just take a step back and breathe and be like, okay, this is my partner's angry 15-year-old boy. I can totally see when that comes out. And learning to just try to support them through that, right? You are there in service of your partner feeling loved, supported, and accepted. And that is what creating safety is all about, is really understanding that you are in service of each other. So just take a moment here and just take a pulse on your relationship. Do you feel safe in your relationship? Do you feel that, is that important to you? And what supports you to feel safe in your relationship? Maybe take and write that down. What supports you to feel safe? What does that mean for you? And what does your partner do to support this? And alternatively, tap into, what do you do that reduces the sense of safety? And what does your partner do that reduces the sense of safety? And what are some ideas to increase this? Right? Knowing that you are both in service to creating this sense of safety for the other and for the relationship. And now, hopefully, you've got a couple of notes there. And again, you can always come back to this. I know I'm moving a little bit quickly, but got a lot I want to go through and we don't have a lot. Well, we have 60 minutes, but still, I want to respect your time. So I'm going to move on to the third step now. And the third step is nourishment. So making time and putting time and energy into your relationship, like anything. And I view a relationship like a living thing, like any living thing. It needs to be nurtured. It needs sun and light and love and attention, right? Like a plant. If you think about a plant, you can't just like stick it in the corner and hope it survives. You have to breathe life into things that you want to live. And that's true with your relationship. So, I mean, and I get it. Life gets super busy. I know my husband travels a lot for work. I have a busy life as well. We have a daughter, we have a lot going on. And it's easy to get stuck in that busy routine where, you're just getting through the days. And sometimes, honestly, you're going to have those weeks where it is crazy and you don't connect as much. But it's important during that time to really find little ways to stay connected. You really have to create time and space for your relationship to thrive. There's no way around that. So, and part of this nourishment is also how can you give more love for just the sake of being loving? Oftentimes in relationships, we want it to be like tit for tat, where I did this, so that means you need to do this, or I did this, and so you should do this. And it's kind of shifting that mindset because at the end of the day, the more you are giving and loving to your partner, ironically, the more your needs are probably going to be met. But you can't come at it with the angle of, I'm going to do this to get something. It's like, what can I do to be more loving? What can I do to nourish the relationship and taking responsibility on your end? Because I know it's easy to let it get to the wayside, but just putting some intention, like, what are some ways that I could nourish my relationship? How could I give more love without expectation? What would that look like? And another thing I like to share around nourishment is how can you create more time for your relationship? And I know this can seem hard for some people, and some people hate the idea of scheduling time together. But if you think back to when you were dating, you would be excited to go on a date, right? Let me grab a little sip of water here. You'd be excited to go on a date. Maybe you got a little fancier than usual. You definitely probably didn't go in sweatpants and like holy t-shirt. Maybe you did, but usually put a little more effort in and you're excited and you're going to be together and spend time together doing something fun you both enjoy. And that oftentimes gets put to the wayside when we are busy with families and kids and business and life, is we don't make that time to connect. And it's really vital. So maybe it is a date, or maybe you have a babysitting co-op so you can switch with a friend and they watch your kids one night so you and your partner can hang out, and vice versa. It doesn't have to be something that costs money if you don't have a lot to invest in it. It can be, how can you maybe take a walk together, or just things that you can spend time together and make it a regular thing. So it's something that you start to look forward to, right? And it doesn't have to be, I understand, like sometimes going out on a date, that can be a really big expense. It can be a lot to try to coordinate a babysitter and everything, but trying to do that on occasion is important because, you got to remember that you like each other. And the only way to remember that you like each other sometimes is to get out of the routine and try something new, right? Because then you're like, oh man, I forgot we really love to go see music together. This is so much fun, or whatever it is for you, right? And you got to just get creative. And it's kind of fun to think, like a fun way to think about this is maybe, you and your partner get together and talk about, man, what are some things we both love to do? And write them down and like put them in a jar. And then when you have time, then you don't have to be like, oh, what are we going to do tonight? We actually have a babysitter, right? So you just pull something out and all right, we got some time to nourish ourselves and our relationship. And part of that too is, again, taking that responsibility to take care of yourself and nourish yourself, because you have to be nourishing yourself so you have more to give your partner. And that's a whole nother webinar. But yes, that's important too. And part of creating that regular space for communication, like I talked about earlier with the safety and creating that like safe little nook or your little, playground, whatever you want to call it, is the more you have this time together and the more that you create this, the more you're going to be able to talk to each other more easily, the more you're going to be able to like really listen to each other, and the more you're going to express and to be really talk about the deeper and more challenging issues that come up with more ease, because that's going to happen, right? Life happens. So just take a couple minutes and like right now, write down a couple things that you think you could do that would help you nourish your relationship. What are a few ways that you know that you can nourish your relationship? Maybe can you set a time to spend some time together this week, or whatever it is for you? Just like allow yourself a few minutes to really think on that and take some notes. And another thing to think about here when you're thinking about nourishment is what are some of those things that you used to love to do together that you could bring back in? How could you get creative around that? And another thing I'll bring in too around nourishment and some ways that can make it easier to want to give love and want to give more is to make a list of things you appreciate about your partner. And I get it. Sometimes it's not hard. I mean, sometimes it is hard to come up with that list. But what are some things that you do appreciate? What are you grateful for about them? What do you love about them? What is the reason you fell in love with them in the first place? And reminding yourself of that. Because it's often easy to forget when life gets crazy. And when you can connect to that, it makes it easier to be loving and less resentful. So those, instead of focusing what they don't do or how they didn't do something, focus on what they do, what they do offer. I'm going to move on to step number 4, communication, right? We've never been taught how to communicate well, oftentimes. It is not easy, especially when we are in our most intimate relationships where it's just, they can trigger all the things in us. And, many times, even for the best of us, our communication can be aggressive or used to create shame or be accusatory or bring out fear or guilt, when actually you could express the exact same thing with love, compassion, dignity, and respect. And, by learning simple tools, you can have deep, productive, informative, loving, and compassionate communication with your partner. But I'm curious, if you think about where you are now in communication, how do you feel you and your partner communicate on a scale of 1 to 10? What would you say? And some of the common things that happen is we do trigger each other. Again, I mentioned earlier about like triggering those stress cycles in one another. And it's interesting, but people, you'll hear this sometimes from people that, man, you treat the people that you love the most sometimes worse than anyone. And it's because they are always around, right? They see all the sides of you, and we're humans. We're not perfect. We're not going to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes. But the key is to try to mend those wounds as quickly as we can, whether it be with our partner or with our kids or whoever it is that we've had a communication breakdown with that's led into an argument or a fight or something where you've, yelled or been yelled at or whatever it is. And, another thing is that we often have a hard time listening. And it's just the way of the world today. We are constantly distracted with phones and work and everything. There's constant interruptions. So there's something to be said for really, when you are communicating with your partner, to listen, to truly listen and hold space. And for those of you who might not understand that term, holding space, really what that means is you are literally just listening without any kind of agenda. You're just allowing your partner to say whatever they need to say. You don't want to interrupt them. You don't want to start another conversation. You don't want to one up them. You just want to be there and listen and let them, literally, you're just holding the space for them to be who they are, to say what they want to say. And when you can do that, and when your partner can do that for you, it is really life-changing. And there's a great video that I can post a link to, because I know for a lot of men out there, it can be challenging to understand what that means. And there's a great video that just kind of demonstrates what that looks like. It's you're not jumping in and trying to fix anything. You're not trying to solve the problem. You're just listening, and you're really paying attention. And it's a skill. It's like practice, like anything, like all these tools, they just take practice, because that's how you learn something new. And our brains are so conditioned to run a certain track. Like I like to explain it, if you can think of a muddy road, and you see these ruts that are just worn in, and the car is just going to go down that road no matter what. And you want to maybe try a different path, but it's going to be a struggle at first. You got to really kind of get the car going back and forth a bunch of times to make this new route. And that's how it works with our brain and our neural pathways. We have to create something new. And the only way to do that is with repetition and time. So being gentle on yourself during the process, right? And knowing that we're not perfect, right? We're going to make mistakes. We're going to have those times where we lose it. But, really the key with that listening is not interrupting and allowing each other to be heard. And I'll share with you, there's so many ways that you can improve this, but I'm going to share with you one way right now. And this is just an easy practice you can do with your partner. You can do it with anyone, really. But just a listening practice where you take 2 minutes and you put a timer on, and you have your partner, you take turns with this, and you're going to take turns asking 3 different questions. And really the purpose of this exercise is to allow each other to speak without interruption, and knowing that if something does trigger you, just try to put that in your back pocket for this exercise, because if you interrupt, that's going to breach trust. If you start another conversation, it's going to breach trust. If you bring up anything that they said during this time in an argument at a later date, that is going to destroy trust. Don't do any of those things for this practice, because this is all around listening and holding space for one another. So you're going to take turns, and I'll share at the end with you a link where you can download all this. But basically this practice is called Fears, Desires, and Loves. And it's one of my favorites and one of my clients' favorites, because it just allows you an opportunity to practice listening, being heard, holding space, and sharing vulnerably. So the first question you're going to ask is, what do you really want? And then you're going to have that timer set for 2 minutes, and the partner's going to answer with what they really want. And if they come to a lull or stop, you can just say, thank you. What do you really want? So you're just going to ask that one question over and over. No side tangents, just keep focused on the one thing. And then when they're done after the 2 minutes, you say thank you, and then you switch. And your partner will ask you, what do you really want? And you'll do it for 2 minutes. And then the second question is, what are you afraid of? And again, you are going to allow your partner to answer that question for 2 minutes. If they stop or if they pause, you can just say, thank you. What are you afraid of? And honestly, a lot of times this is such a huge thing for couples because we don't often give ourselves an opportunity to talk about our fears. And especially for men, like they don't often get to open up around what's going on with them. And, they're taught to hold things in. So this is a really great way. If you can do this right and you can, really, well, there's no right or wrong way. You just don't want to interrupt mainly. But if you can do this and start to build that trust with one another, it's amazing how much closer you'll get. So then the final question is, what do you love about me? And so again, you'll take turns asking each other those questions. Yes, I will post that. And yeah, so again, it takes 15 minutes, right? Everybody has 15 minutes. And sometimes it might be challenging to get your partner to play along with a practice like this. I get that. And so what I often recommend is just say, hey, I read this or I saw this webinar and I thought this sounded like a cool idea. What do you think about that? And give them the opportunity to answer. So instead of going, can we do this? Yes or no. Don't give it a yes or no. Just share it and give them an opportunity. Often works well. So that is a really powerful communication practice. And again, the more you do it, the easier it gets, the more you can feel like you can talk to one another and be heard. And it takes practice. It takes practice. But it can be fun, right? And oftentimes after this, you'll find that you will connect more deeply. And so I'll invite you now just to kind of think on when you tap into your communication, when you see where you are on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think you could improve? Do you think you can improve at listening? Do you think you could improve at holding space? Do you think you could improve at communicating more effectively, using more I statements, less, versus kind of putting it on someone else, blaming? It's just interesting things to observe. And again, it's always just the more we know, that's just good information of where we can grow. And I'm going to move on in just a moment. I'll give you another couple minutes, though, just to really think on what ideas may come to you around communication. And I'll share, actually, this is funny. When I think about communication and breathing, I learned this tool from a parenting book I read, and it's just very applicable for any situation where you're feeling triggered and you want to lose it. And I think I mentioned earlier about the brain and how it works, but just to give you a quick overview of the 3-part brain is we've got up here, we've got our mid-prefrontal cortex, which is like our higher level thinking, problem solving, all that good stuff. And then in the middle, we've got kind of our limbic system, our emotional brain, our feelings, things like that. And then at the base, we have our primal brain. That's like our basic functioning, breath, heartbeat, things like that. And so when we are triggered, usually the amygdala is going to run the show and we can go into fight, flight, freeze, whatever that may be for you. And you might notice when you get into an argument, which one you fall into. So it's just the way our bodies work. Again, we're trying to stay safe. And when we feel like we're threatened, then the amygdala is going to come out. So if you can actually take a breath, and this is the trick. So you can take your thumb, this is your primal brain, and then wrap your fingers around it. This is your thinking brain. So that when you can do that with your hand, that for me has been a really great tool. I think it was called The Whole Brain Child is the name of the book. But it's just so helpful too with your partner when you feel like you're going to lose it, because it just reminds you to breathe. And if you can just take a couple of breaths, then that does allow your thinking brain to come on board again. Just a little tip that I find helpful. So I'm going to move to step 5, key 5. This is like something that's so important, especially in my work. I really think it's such a powerful key, is physical connection. And physical connection is so key. You know, so much of the work that I do evolves around like being in your body and learning how to be in your body and how much our body holds on to things. You know, we ourselves have memory. And so, you know, if we've had trauma or anything that we hold on to in our bodies, that can come out in our relationships. And when we've been in these, you know, creating these stressful situations with our partner where we're not connecting or where we constantly trigger each other, our body again is closed. So when you bring in connection practice, physical connection practices, it really increases the natural sense of love, safety, and intimacy within your relationship. And it shuts off that warning faction of your brain when you connect. So you can move into this felt sense experience of compassion and connection. So not only does it help you enter a loving state, you know, it really communicates to this deep part of your brain that your partner is an ally, a lover, a safe person. And you've got to let your body remember that and give it the opportunity to, so it can soften and open. And you also are tapping into all different parts of the brain when you use the body for connection. So it really can deepen this healing and connection with your partner. And I love, you know, one of the beautiful things about women as well is that we have this great ability to open our hearts. And often when we have this physical connection with our partner, it really takes, you know, like 30 seconds to get the oxytocin flowing and that connection, that feel-good hormone. And when women can open our hearts and we can give that to our partner, it helps them open up their hearts as well. You know, there's so much that being in our feminine bodies can offer in a relationship. And so often we're up here, like head up. So like dropping into our bodies and learning how to do that and learning how to do that with your partner is super delicious. So I'll share with you, you know, again, there's so many different ways to practice physical connection, but I'll just share a simple one. It's so easy. And I think I maybe will share too, but that one I want to share is, you know, even just like embracing each other, hugging. Like if you hug for 30 seconds, you're going to notice yourself soften. And that's an easy thing to do, right? Especially if you have been in an argument or you want to make up or you just kind of want to, like you notice that you're heading down that road, that you can just stop, take a breath and be like, hug it out, right? Right, baby?
Yes.
My husband just walked by. But we'll do that. You know, we can tell. And we have these like, and then once you start doing these things that make you feel safe and reconnected and let your bodies and your nervous systems recalibrate, it is just a reminder that this person is safe. And the more you do them, then it's like a Pavlov's dog kind of thing. Like, you know, like, okay, we've had this argument or whatever. Now we know that we can have this connection. So like, whatever it is, you'll start to sense that in your partner, right? And I'm going to share the download I'll share with you at the end also has another one of my favorite connection practices where it's basically connecting on all different levels of your body. So you're connecting by looking at each other's eyes. You're connecting by like opening your hearts to one another. You're connecting by having your genitals connect. Like even if it's not, you can sit on their lap, but even if you're sitting across from each other, like activating this lower part of your body and opening that way. But just like connecting on these 5 levels. I call it the kiss meditation. It's beautiful. So you'll get that one later too. And that's an easy one to do with your partner. And again, these things that can take a minute, literally a minute. And there is one of my teachers has taught me this practice of connections or launchings and landings, Stan Tatkin calls them, where that you create these little points of connection throughout your day. And they can be super fast. But like maybe in the morning, you like touch each other's hearts for a second before you get out of the bed. And then when your partner gets home from work, you actually observe their presence entering and like stop what you're doing and say hello and like connect. Like those tiny little things are so key because they're easy to do and easy not to do, right? And you can think about, I love the analogy of flying a plane. And if you go like 1 degree off course, it's not a big deal now, but like in 600 miles, it's a huge deal. You're in a whole nother city. And when you're thinking about things that you can do with your partner, like what are some easy ways that you could allow more connection in? And what are some ways you turn it off? Because, you know, for example, maybe you're washing the dishes and your partner comes up to give you a hug and you're like, oh, I'm busy, right? If you do that enough times, they're not going to make that move anymore. They're not going to try to connect. So kind of just take a gauge on where you are on a scale of 1 to 10, where you allow physical connection, where you allow touch, where you open up to receive touch from your partner, and where you give touch to your partner. And just kind of noticing where that is for you. And maybe thinking where are those places where you could allow more and soften more. And honestly, a lot of it is like being present moment to moment with your body and what you're experiencing, which is something I teach my clients and something you can learn. But, you know, because I think oftentimes we'll say, maybe we got into an argument in the morning and then we want to hold on to that all day and be like, well, we're definitely not connecting tonight because he did this, that, the other, right? And you can hold on to that all day long and have decided in the morning that in that night you're not going to connect. Versus if you're constantly aware of what's going on in your body, what's going on with you, that you learn how to like let your nervous system come back to equilibrium, connect, and then really tune in. How do I feel in this moment? Is there an opening? Is there a softening? And just honoring that. Because from that place, maybe you will want to connect, maybe you won't, but you'll be in the moment and you'll be making a more informed decision versus like holding on to a grudge or something like that from earlier in the day. And maybe, you know, so if you've got kind of some ideas of what you think you can do to bring in that connection. And I'll just kind of recap quickly. I know we've gone over a lot, but the first step we worked on getting clarity and working on that ideal vision for your relationship. And the second step was working on safety and what you can do to bring in more of that in your relationship. And the third step was nourishment, how you can make more time and attention and give more nourishment to your relationship. And the fourth step was communication, how to improve. And finally, connection, ways you can physically connect with your partner. And it's really been proven that our energy fields, you know, are around about arm's distance around us. And so when you can connect with your partner and bring that together, you can feel when you have that awesome connection, you can feel that energy, you can feel that like, it feels so good, right? Versus when you're not connected. So now that you've kind of gotten some of the keys of the system and learned some basic things, do you feel like you can implement this in your relationship? And again, I'll share the download. You can get it at amandatesta.com/intimacy. I'll also post it below. We'll type it in real quick. And that is where you can find the download for the communication exercise I talked about, the fears, desires, and loves, and also the KISS meditation. And I'll share with you too, a couple of success stories, because I know, sometimes you can be in those situations in your relationship where you're like, man, I don't know, can things change, or is it even more worth it? And, I'll tell you about my clients, Kelly and Mark, and they had a stressful situation because he traveled a lot for work, and they have 2 young kids. And so there was a lot of kind of resentment that she felt she was doing so much. They always felt disconnected. They were constantly arguing, and they just really were not connecting at all. They did have a deep love for one another though, and they really, wanted to connect. They just couldn't. And so honestly, there's so much that happens when you just make that intention to work together. And through our process, they really learned some good communication techniques. So now they know how to have conversations versus arguments. And they've learned some techniques to connect and keep the intimacy alive, even when they weren't physically together, which again is so key, because that physical connection is so important. And there are ways to bring that energy and that connection in, even when you have a partner who travels a lot, or if you travel a lot. So they were able to start these sexy fun games that they brought in, and really connected again, and they feel like they are back on track, and they have sex regularly again, and they enjoy each other's company, and they and she says that she has so much more help around the home now. She just feels more supported in general. So also I have another couple that I work with, Natalie and Joe, and again they have exhausted themselves with kids, and that's kind of sucked the sex life right out of their relationship. So it was kind of a process of relearning how to connect and how to make time for that, and creating a strategy to do that, because honestly, we can have all the great intentions in the world, but sometimes without accountability, it doesn't happen. And having someone kind of be a third party that doesn't have any agenda, that can help you listen to each other and learn how to talk again, and really give each other a sounding board. So they hadn't had sex in 6 months when they started working with me, and they really were struggling. And, she had found some texts from another woman. Nothing had happened at that point, but that was just going down that road. And so through working together, we were able to really rekindle that flame again. And now they enjoy regular dates, and they have that intimacy back, and they feel like they're connected again in their relationship. So just a couple of examples, but I love seeing that love come back again. I'm such a believer in love, and I just know how powerful it is. It's such a healing thing. And so many of us hold on to so much that we bring into our relationship, and we can actually use the relationship as a container for healing and growth if we allow it. And that's, again, not something we've been taught, especially in our society. Everything's throw away, move along, what's next? But there's such beauty in healing and working through what's coming up. So I'm curious what your main takeaways so far are from our time together. If there's one specific thing that you are definitely going to implement. And I'll ask you this, if you don't take action, will you see results? Because information alone does not create change. You have to actually do something about it. And, to create lasting change, you oftentimes need to shift your mindset. You need to shift your beliefs. You need to shift your strategy and what you're doing. Because if you continue doing what you're doing, you're going to get the same thing, right? So you have to do something new. And so, as you were reviewing everything, I'm just curious, you're looking at the big picture of all these different things in your relationship. How were things last month? How many times did you argue? How many times did you have sex? How many times did you feel shut down, or lock yourself in the room and cry, right? How many times did you lash out at your children when you were really mad at your partner and you took it out on your kids? And then think, where are things on a scale of 1 to 10? right now? And how would you maybe like that to shift? We talked about that in the beginning with your ideal vision. And then, I hate to say this too, but I always like to really be honest with people, and you got to look at the truth of matter is what will happen if you don't make any changes, right? What would things look like in 1 year if you don't make any shifts, or 5 years down the road? And how will that affect your relationship? How will that affect your children if you have kids? Right? What happens if you keep going down the road of disconnection? But knowing that the good news is that you can do something about it, right? Like all you have to do is shift, right? Lasting change, again, it's created through new habits and new strategies. And hopefully you will take these tools I've given you tonight and really implement them into your relationship. Again, I posted the link below. It's amandatesta.com/intimacy for those guides. But again, sometimes it takes more than just having the information. It takes implementation and someone holding your hand. So you can keep going through the motions and hoping and praying for a change. But if you're done with that and you're really ready for support and a proven, powerful process to get you where you want to be in your relationship, and you want to do it with a supportive guide holding your hand and holding you accountable and giving you that unbiased support, then this is what I have for you. So I've set aside some time over the next 48 hours to really speak with you personally about how you can apply these ideas to your relationship starting today. And knowing, whatever your biggest challenges are, I've probably seen them and supported someone through them. So if you are struggling and you want some support, or maybe, again, you just want a better, more connected relationship, maybe things are pretty good, but you just want to take them to the next level. Or maybe you really want to explore like what it would look like to really open up this more sacred connection and bring in some more, sacred sexuality into your relationship, then I can help you. So here's how it works. If you are interested, you can hop on the phone with me. It takes about 45 minutes. And on that session, I will work with you to craft a step-by-step game plan to reach your relationship goals. I've given some really broad strokes here that are helpful for most relationships. But everyone's different. Every relationship is different. And so I have to sometimes go in and customize the teachings to really apply directly to you and your relationship. So that's what we'll do on the call. It's absolutely free. But, there is a little catch. It's not for everyone. And what does that mean? That means if you are not ready and willing to invest time and effort in your relationship and really make it a priority again, this probably is not for you. If you're really not willing to invest the time and energy to bringing the love and passion back, it's probably not going to help you out. So, but if you are ready to take responsibility and you really, want this real change in your relationship, then this is for you. And if that is, I'll invite you to you can book a session. And you may ask why I do this and why I do it for free. But honestly, it's like I truly love helping people. I see the ripple effect that relationships have, and you can even put yourself in the shoes. Like imagine a day where you and your partner were in a fight and you left the house and you were like, oh. And how did you treat your kids from that space? How did you treat your coworkers? How did you treat your friends from that place? Versus how, think about a time where you had like a great night, maybe you connected and you had this awesome night together and you felt so in love and Twitter pated in the morning, you're all like, off to work like this in such a good mood. And how did you treat your kids from that place? How did you treat your coworkers? How did you treat the guy that pulls out in front of you in traffic from that place? Right? I love watching that come back, and I love helping people heal their relationships and watching that connection and love return. So it really lights me up, and I also know that after I help people with these strategies, they may want my help to really transform things on a further level and have hand holding. And that's what I do all day. And if that's what people want, cool, we can discuss what that looks like and see if it's a good fit for the both of us. But if not, that's fine too. Either way, just doing the call with me is going to get you real clarity on what you need and really insight, more insight than you've had on your relationship in a long time. So you can go to amandatesta.com/apply. And I'll also type that in. But when you go to that link, you'll see my calendar. And if the link is not working for any reason, you can just go to your browser, type amandatesta.com/apply. And then it will have all the appointments that I have open over the next few days. So you can just choose a time that works for you. And then you put your name and your phone number and we'll call you at that time. And it will be a great experience in getting real clarity on what steps you need to take. So people get so much clarity out of these calls, y'all. So it really probably will blow your mind how clear you get on what your next steps need to be, and how helpful it is just doing that. Like putting that out into the universe, just one small step, it's amazing what changes happen. So I'll type that in and you can book a call to speak with me. And there's limited spaces available, but if you pop in there, you can see what's up and you can get a good spot and book your appointment. And I'm very excited to speak with you and help you in any way I can. So I appreciate you all so much for being here tonight. I know it's been an hour. If you do have additional questions, please feel free to message me, send them to me, or schedule a call and I can help walk you through and support you. And we will talk soon. Have an awesome night, everyone.